is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to a preview of this game right here. This is Storyfold Wildwoods. This is published by Open Owl Studios, who is sponsoring today's video, so huge thank you to them. And it is designed by Sjoerd Vanderlind. And Storyfold Wildwoods is a little bit different from games that I have done previews on in the past. A few things that make it different is the fact that, one, it is a solo-only game, so this game can only be played solo. I'm sure you could play it together with someone cooperatively if you guys wanted to make decisions throughout the story together, but this is primarily a solo game, and it is a very narrative-based game. So you're going to be going through a story, which I will get into, like the aim of the game and the story behind the game in the next section of this video, but this is a narrative game. It is more so of an experience rather than a game. There still is mechanisms and different things that you're going to be doing in the game that is and makes it a game, but it is very much so an experience. You're going through this story, you're finding out new things, you're progressing in different ways depending on the results of what you are doing in the story. It's a campaign game, so the kind of prototype that I've gotten here today from Open Owl Studios includes a prologue as well as chapter 1. I'm going to try not to do too many like spoilers or anything like that. I will actually be doing a live stream of this if you guys are interested. I will have the date and everything down below so you guys can join me for that, so you can see more of a real-time how the game is played and what you are doing in the game. Without further ado, if you guys want to see more about Storyfold Wildwoods, then just keep on watching. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Also, hit that subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. I will have the link in the description box to the campaign for Storyfold Wildwoods. This is going to be on Kickstarter, and when this video goes live, it will be live. The campaign will be live. So definitely go and check it out if this seems like something that you would enjoy yourself. And without further ado, let's get into this preview of Storyfold Wildwoods, shall we? All right, so getting into the aim of the game, as well as a little bit of a story behind the game and the components in front of me here. So like I said in the intro, this is a prototype and everything is subject to change, but I've only received a chunk of what this game has to offer because this is a story-driven campaign game where you're going to be going through various chapters. With this, I've only received the prologue as well as chapter 1, and the prologue is actually a great way to learn the game. So it does have a rule book. You can, if you prefer to read the rule book, do that, but you can also go through the prologue, and it actually allows you to play through this kind of intro game as it explains each of the mechanisms to you. So you are playing through this prologue and learning as you go, which I think is great for those of us that don't prefer to read a rule book or just learn better by doing. So that is what I've received here in this prototype, but this is a very nice prototype, and I will go through everything after. But as for the story behind Storyfold Wildwoods, you are going to be playing as a little girl named Luma, and she is going to be joined by her companion bear named Brom. And they are setting out to heal the forest and its creatures from this mysterious shadow that has been laid upon the entire forest. And they are trying to bring light to the forest and kind of get rid of this shadow or this darkness that is kind of looming upon them. So you're going to be going through the story, you're going to be doing various things, which I will get into with exactly how the game is played. But like I said, this is going to be a little bit different because obviously I don't want to give you guys any spoilers, and a lot of it does have to do with the story. So we're just going to go over a brief overview of how generally the game is played and what you're going to be doing in the game, so you guys can get a better feel if it's something for you. So that is a little bit of the story behind it and the aim of the game, which is that you're going through this story and you are basically trying to get rid of this shadow in the forest and all of this darkness that has been thrust upon the forest and its creatures and everything around. So that is everything for the aim of the game as well as the story. But as for the components here, you guys will see that I have this set up here in front of me. And the cool thing about this is that you can save your game at any point. And in order to do that, you actually get to like fold in these sides and fold this to kind of save the state of where you are in the game. So once you're ready to play the game, you're going to open the book, fold out these two sides, which is kind of like your dashboard, and everything that you need is right here in front of you. And then you can get right into where you left off and what scene you are playing. So on the left side here, you have some things, and on the right side here, you have some things, which we'll get into. And then along the bottom, you have the river, which is a really big part of the game, and a lot of what you are going to do with playing cards and all of those things. So the river is a very important part, and you have these 4 main slots at the bottom that are going to be where your 4 main actions are. So you have explore, light, help, and heal. And whenever you have different creatures come into the game, they are actually going to take up spots in this river, and you actually can extend it to be 7 spots here. So eventually there might be some times where your main actions are off of the board and you actually cannot use them because they have to be in these 4 main spots here in order for you to use them. And they also have various numbers above them that is going to be the number that you have to roll in order to have that action have a success. So I will get into all of that, but just know if they are off of this main area here and in these 3 spots over here of the river, they are unable to be used. So the more creatures that you have come into the river and the longer that they stay there and you don't get rid of them, the more spots they're going to take up for those main actions. So that is the river. You also have below here, this is not part of the river, but this is where you're going to have your companion Brom. And then you have 3 spots here for boons, which you're going to have an explore deck, and those are going to be various things that you can gain, and they are either going to be boons or banes, which banes are going to be bad and it's going to be something that's going to happen that is going to affect you, but then boons are going to be things that you can collect and use at any time in the game. So you have 3 spots there for some boons. Above that, you have your spirit track, which is a little bit of like your health track in a way, where if you do get down to the bottom, it does reset up to the top, but you do have to draw a shadow card, which is not good. And if you do get down to the last shadow card, which in the prologue, you only have 1 shadow card, which is lost, you actually lose that scene. So you do not want your health or your spirit to get down to the bottom. But you also do over here have your Luma card, your Luma and Brom card, but eventually if you do use your Brom card in order for him to protect you in a way, you do have to flip that over and it is just your Luma card now because Brom has left to protect you. You also have the shadow discard pile here, the shadow card pile, which obviously these are going to be different for each of the scenes and each of the chapters. You have your story deck here, which again will be very different for each of the scenes and each of the chapters. So you have that. And then along the top here, it actually tells you the phases and how each round is going to be played. So you have the Luma phase, and then you have the shadow phase, and that is going to continue back and forth until you either lose or win that specific scene. And then moving into the center here, this is the current scene that you are in. So it shows the scene. At the top, it does have the scene title, as well as a little bit of story behind the scene, the setup, the shadow effect, as well as your win and lose conditions. So that has all of that up there. So whenever you move to a new scene, you immediately read that, and that kind of shows you how to set up the game, what you are doing, and how to get started. So you have that. You have the scene down here, which is going to have various places that you're going to be able to interact with. This is the first scene, so it is fairly simple, but as you do progress through the story, things are going to get a little bit more complex, and there's going to be more things added and different things that you can do on this page. But you have various things that you're going to be interacting with. And then at the bottom here, you have a few very important things. The first thing is going to be the Wildwoods track here, which this is a big part of the game because your main goal for this story is that you are trying to bring lightness and you are trying to avoid the darkness or the shadow taking over. So you do have the lightness tracker here that you are trying to get to the center to progress through the story. That is one of the things that you need to do in order to move to the next part in the story before the darkness gets to the center, because if the darkness gets to the center, that is actually one of the lose conditions and you do lose that scene or scenarios. And then lastly, at the bottom here, you do have these numbers, which, like I said, this is going to be the number that you do have to roll with the dice, which you do have 5 of these D8s that you're going to be rolling, and each action you are going to be deciding how many dice you want to roll in order to get a certain amount of successes, and that success is going to be determined by where that card is and what action you're wanting to perform. So for example, if you want to perform the explore action, the success of that is going to be 3 or higher. So the further to the left or to your right, the less the number has to be in order to have that be a success. So you have number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. And if you are in these 3 spots over here, there's no numbers, and therefore you cannot perform those actions until they move to the left onto one of these 4 spots. So that is everything for this middle part here. That's a lot of what you're going to be interacting with. And then over here on the right side, you have your explore cards, which, like I said, you're going to be picking those up and gaining either boons or banes. You have the explore card discard here. You have creatures, which are going to be, like I said, added into your river and kind of blocking those spots until you have helped them and kind of cured them of that shadow. So you have your creatures, you have your creature discard pile, and then at the bottom here, you kind of have your resource area. So you have crystals, which we'll get into, you have your location markers, which we'll get into, as well as the stun tokens. And then whenever you use your dice, so if I decided to use 2 dice for an action, I rolled them, I finished that action, I would put those 2 used dice over here to the used dice pool. I would then do another action, maybe use another 3, and then once I have no dice, that would be the end of the Luma phase. You'd move into the shadow phase, and then once it gets back to the Luma phase, you would take those used dice and then put them into your available dice pool in front of you. So that is that area there. And then at the top here, you have the travel steps. So this is going to be how you are going to end a scene and move into another scene, or kind of save your progress, close up the book, and then wait for the next time you get this game out to play. So that is everything there. And I do believe that that is everything for the components in front of me. So without further ado, let's get into a little bit of an overview of how the game is played, so you guys can get a better feel if Storyfold Wildwoods is something that you want to get. So yes, let's get into that now. All right, so getting right into how exactly Storyfold Wildwoods is played. Like I said, you're going to be going through this story and you're going to be playing through these different chapters, and each chapter is going to have various scenes. So I am currently on the first scene here, which is crossing the river, and this is going to be played over various rounds, and each round is going to be played in 2 phases. We have the Luma phase and then we have the shadow phase. Once that is finished, you're going to reset, you're going to do the Luma phase again, shadow phase again. This is going to continue over and over again until you have successfully either won the scenario or lost the scenario. And in various situations, if you lose, you're just going to have to try the scenario again until you do win, or there might be something that happens if you do lose that kind of changes your path. It will still continue you forward, but in a slightly different way than if you were to have won the scenario. So that is kind of the basic kind of flow of the game, but getting into exactly what you're going to be doing. So you're going to start with a Luma phase, which is going to be that you are going to get your active dice. So if this was the start of the game, obviously they would not be used, but if you're going into another phase, they would be over here in the used dice section. You would take those, you would put them in front of you, and you'd be ready to start your actions. So the actions that you can perform are down at the bottom here, and based off of where the cards are, that is kind of going to be their strength or the success number that you have to roll in order to successfully kind of do that action. So you're going to look at these actions and you're going to decide what you want to do. So there is explore, light, help, and heal. So let's get into first what the explore action is going to allow you to do. All right, so starting off with the explore action, there's going to be various spots in each scene that are going to be explore locations. So these are going to be a purple color. They're going to be the same purple color as the explore card, and they are also going to have a matching icon as well. So there are 2 different locations in this scene that are going to be able to be explored. So you have the cross location as well as the onwards location. location. And these are actually going to be how you progress through the scene and eventually get to the end of the scene. So some of these locations are going to be connected by arrows. So in this situation, the cross is connected to the onwards by an arrow. So that means that you do have to complete the cross explore location before you can get to the onwards location. And the onwards location is one of the things that you have to complete in order to move on to the next scenarios. So these are going to be the places that you're going to be able to explore to. And I will mention right now that each of these different action cards have two different things. So you have your top action that you can do or the bottom action. If you decide to do the top action and you unfortunately do not have a successful roll, you actually can go down to the bottom action and do that instead, kind of as a secondary action if you did fail the first action. Or you can actually decide to do the secondary action and just not do the first action or the top actions. So the first action on the explore card is going to allow you to explore these different locations. And each of the locations do require a certain amount of successes in order to explore them. And then they're going to tell you something that you're going to do after you have successfully explored those locations. So the cross here does require 2 successes, and once you do successfully roll those, you would then be able to draw story card number 1. So you're always going to have some story cards here, and you're going to be able to draw that story card. So for example, with this, if I decided to take the explore action, that is going to be in the 3 spot. I would decide how many dice I would want to roll. I need a 3 or more, and I need 2 successes. So I might decide to play it pretty safe and maybe roll 3 dice to hopefully secure those 2 successes that I need. And then for every die that I roll that is a 3 or more, which in this situation I rolled 2 7s and a 5, so all 3 of them were successes, but I only needed 2. So I would successfully explore this location here. I would take one of these location markers, I would place it here to denote that I successfully explored the cross location, and then it would tell me to pick up story card number 1. I do have the full prologue deck here, which tells you to go through everything. So once you got to this specific card here, this is story card number 1, I'd pick that up, I'd read the story, and then it would tell me something would happen, which in this situation, it would say to draw 1 creature card. So I would take a creature card off the top of the deck here. It would be Cry, which is a creature, and it says on play, you would add this to the end of the river. So I would place Cry at the end of the river here, and I now have 1 creature in my river, which is not great. So then once I was finished with the story card and I was finished with my first action, which was the explore action, I would take the dice that I used, place those into the used dice area, and then whenever you perform an action, that action will then get taken off of the spot that it's in, it will go to the end of the river, and then every other card would then shift down. So now Cry is actually in one of the 4 main action spots, taking up that spot there for an action card, and my explore action is on the outskirts of the main area, which means I cannot use that explore action again until it comes onto the main 4 spots, or one of the main 4 spots. And then alternatively for the explore action, the secondary action is to gain explore cards. So basically what's going to happen is you're going to decide how many dice you're going to roll, and then based off of where the explore card is, that's going to determine your success roll that you have to get. And then depending on how many successful dice rolls you get, so in this situation I would have gotten 2, that is going to allow me to pick up that many explore cards, and then I choose 1 to keep and the rest would go into the discard pile. So in this situation, I would be able to pick up 2 explore cards. Like I said, with the explore cards, there are 2 types. There are boons, which are good things, and there are banes, which are not so great things. So in this situation here, we have mud and berries, and mud is a bane, so I might decide to discard the mud card. I would probably or definitely want to discard that, and then I would keep the berries, which is a boon. So this would, at any time, I could play this on a Luma phase and then discard the card, and that would allow me to recover 2 of my spirit. So I would move to the left twice on the spirit track. So this would actually stay in my boon area until I decided to use that. So that is the secondary action of the explore. But now let's get into the second action here at the bottom, which is light. So moving on to the light action. So this allows you to do one of two things. The primary action is that you can light a creature, which this actually just stuns them. You are stunning them with the light, and that allows you to add a stun token onto them. And this kind of prolongs them attacking you, because in the shadow phase, they're going to be attacking you and lowering your spirit. So if they do have a stunned kind of marker there, it is going to skip that step, and you're just going to take off the stun marker instead of them attacking you. So in this situation, I might decide to use my light action to try to light or to stun Cry. So every creature is going to have a certain amount of successes that they need, both for the light action as well as the heal action, which we'll get into. So for Cry here, they need one success for both of them. So I simply just need one success with light in order to successfully light or stun Cry. So I might decide to roll 2 of these dice in hopes that I will get at least one success. I did get 2 successes, which is great. I would then take one of these stun markers and I would place that on Cry. That is one thing that you can do. And then the other thing, or the secondary action that you can perform, is moving the lightness marker. So this is going to be another thing that you have to do in order to be able to move on to the next scene. So you have to make your lightness marker go to the center in order to progress in the stories. So this would allow you, for every success you rolled, to move that lightness marker up 1 step. So if I got 2 successes, I would be able to move my lightness marker up twice. Now, once I was finished with that, again, I would take that light action, I would move it to the back, and I would move everything up once. At this time, because I had no available dice, that would actually be the end of my actions. You can only perform actions until you have no more dice to use, and then you would move into the next phase, which is the shadow phase. But I do want to go over the other 2 actions that you can perform before we get into what happens on the shadow phase. But just know, because I didn't have any dice here, I would have to move on to that. But I am going to explain the other 2 actions now. The third action is going to be help, which is this blue card here. And like every other action card, there are 2 different things that you can do with this card. The first one is going to be activating a help location, which there are going to be various help locations in each scene. And in this scene in particular, there's only one help location, and this is Untangle. And this is going to allow me to gain crystals, which I'll get into shortly. But the secondary action for the help card is actually going to gain me crystals. So I could roll a certain amount of dice, and whatever I roll that is a success, I would gain crystals equal to the amount of successes, and then I would place those crystals onto cards, which the crystals are going to be very helpful because they are going to allow you to add successes to rolls that you do with that action in the future. So for example, if I had a crystal on the light card and I chose to do that action, I would roll a certain amount of dice, and I could actually, if I at least got 1 success, I could add an additional success for every crystal that I discarded. So if I only got 1 success and I needed 2, I would actually be able to discard a crystal in order to gain that second success that I needed. But in order to use crystals, you have to have at least 1 natural success or a successful die in order to then use those crystals. And then going back to the primary action for the help card, this is going to allow you to use those different help locations. So like I said here, the Untangle location, it requires 1 success. So I would decide how many dice I wanted to roll. I would roll those. Because the help card is on the 3 spot, I would need a 3 or higher to get a success. And if I successfully at least rolled 1 of those 3s or higher, I would be able to use the Untangle location. I would take one of the location markers, I would place it there, and I would be able to, get the reward of that location, which is 2 crystals. So I would take those 2 crystals and I would place them on any of the cards that I had out here, or any of the action cards that I had out here. So I could place them both onto 1 card. I could place 1 on this card and 1 on this card, and then they would be there until I decided to use them for that specific action. And then again, just like all of the other action cards, once I've used this heal action, it would go to the back of the river, everything would move forward and you would move on to the next action or onto the shadow phase. And moving on to the last main action that you have here, which is heal. So like I said, the main action here is to heal a creature. So this is going to be how you are going to get the creature out of your river and heal them and put them into the creature discard pile. So Cry here, I might decide I want to heal. So like I said, at the bottom of each creature card, you do have how many successes they need for both the light action as well as the heal action. So for Cry, just like light, they need 1 success in order to heal. So I would decide how many dice to roll. I would roll them. If I got a success, I would successfully heal Cry. I would take them off or out of the river. At the bottom right-hand corner, each creature is going to have how many crystals you gain for healing them. So for Cry specifically, we would gain 1 crystal. I would take that. I would have to place it onto a card, and then Cry would go into the creature discard pile and they would be successfully healed. The secondary action for heal is that you are going to actually be healing yourself. So this is how you actually move your spirit tracker up again. So if you're getting close to the bottom of the spirit track, you might decide to heal yourself. You would roll a specific amount of dice, however many you would want, and then for every success that you rolled, based off of where that heal card is, you would recover 1 of your spirit. So you would move 1 space to the left for every success that you got. And then again, just like every action card, you would take that action card, any crystals that were on it, it would stay on that card. You'd move it to the end of the river, and then everything would move all the way to the left again. So those are the 4 actions that you can perform on your turn. And then like I said, whenever you run out of dice, that is the end of the Luma phase, and then you'd move into the shadow phase. So the start of the shadow phase, all creatures that are in the river are going to activate. So for example, if Cry was still in the river and we had not healed, they would actually attack you for however many attack or spirit icons are in the top right-hand corner. So for Cry here, they are going to hit me for 1. So my spirit track would go down 1. But like I said, if you did have a stun marker from using the light action on Cry, that would actually make it so they did not attack you. So the attack of that 1 spirit would not happen. You would skip that step. You would take the stun marker off instead. And then once you'd finish that step, you would go on to the after activation step for each creature, which each creature is going to have a different after activation step, which this one here is move 1 space towards the start of the river. So Cry would actually move up 1 space, and then the card that it took its space with would go down 1. So Cry would continuously move forward. And then once you were finished with all creatures, both them attacking as well as their after activation step, you would move on to the next part of the shadow phase, which is advancing the shadow markers. So the shadow marker would move 1 space. If you ever get to a spot on the track here that has a little icon above it, which in this situation we have a little eyeball, so that is a shadow effect. So once the darkness tracker moved to this spot, the shadow effect would happen, which would be that you would draw 1 creature card. So you'd draw another creature card, you'd look at its on play, which for this one, which is Wildwoods, they would actually start in the 6+ spot. So each card would move down and they would start in the +6 spot. So that would be the second part of the shadow phase. You would move the darkness tracker down. If there was an icon, you would perform that icon, and then you'd move back to the Luma phase. Again, you would retrieve your used dice to your available dice, and then you would start your actions again. This would continue over and over again. You would do the Luma phase, you would go to the shadow phase, continue and continue until either the winning condition was met or the losing condition was met, which it's going to be different for every single scenario. But yes, I do believe that that is everything for this overview of how exactly this is going to be played. Like I said, I can't really get into the nitty-gritty of every single thing because this is narrative and it is progressive and there's different things that are going to be introduced, but that is a general overview of the flow of the game and what you are going to be doing in the game. You're going to be discovering different things through the story cards, and with these main mechanics, you're going to be progressing through this story. So yes, that is everything for the overview. All right, everyone, so that is going to be everything for this preview of Storyfold Wildwoods. A huge thank you again to Open Owl Studios for sponsoring today's video. I appreciate it very, very much. If this is something that you think you would enjoy, definitely go and check out the campaign. It is live right now, and I will have a link in the description box for you guys. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up. Also, hit that subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Thank you all so much for watching. I love you so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video. Bye, friends.